In this video, we are going to create a pause menu for our game. Up until now, we've got a game that is playable, but once you're in the game, you have to either play to the end or jump back out.
That's right, and it might be important for you to stop, run to the restroom, get some popcorn, get a Coke. You need something.
So what we're going to do in this video is put together a screen that we're going to call the pause menu, and we're going to set it up so that you can pause the game midway through and bring up the pause menu. From this menu, we're going to allow players to either resume playback of the game or to exit out from the pause menu back to the song selection menu.
All right.
Now, in order to put this together, we're going to be looking at a new class. We're going to call it the pause screen. It'll be a new menu type class. And then we're going to need to tie that new menu into our game in order to invoke it. So, before we get started with the pause screen itself, we're going to need to drop down some positional information because we'll need to know where on screen to position the menu items. To do that, we will begin here in our style XML file, and we have a section here under positions called pause menu. We give a setting of 556 in X and 410 in Y for our pause menu location setting. We'll make sure the XML file gets saved out, and now we can turn our attention to the actual pause menu class. So what we'll do is we'll go up under here inside of our Solution Explorer. We have the menus section, and we will add a new class to menus. We'll call this class Screen Pause. And with our new class in place, we'll begin by cleaning up the sub namespace. We'll pull menus out, and we need to add in some using statements. So we'll drop in a using for Microsoft.xna.framework and a second using statement for framework.graphics. Now on the menu itself, we are going to utilize the menu-based functionality of our screen menu, so we will make sure that screen pause extends screen menu. Alright, inside of the class itself, the first thing we need to do is to set up the menu items inside of our new menu. And we'll do this using a public constructor. So we can drop down public screen pause, and then inside the constructor we'll add two items to the item names list for our menu. So looking into ourselves now as a menu screen, we'll grab this dot item names and we will add an item. The item is going to be the string resume, because again we're going to have two options, resume and quit.
Okay.
So we'll drop in an option for resume, and I'll copy this option and paste it in below for a second item called quit. So this will take care of adding both of our menu items. Now we need to take a look at input handling for the pause menu. We need to see, once on the pause menu, if the user hits select, look at what menu item is selected and then perform the appropriate action. So we'll begin by overriding the input pressed method, and we will of course leave our call to base.inputPressed so that the base menu class can handle our up and down navigation. Now what we're interested in is if the user hits the select button. So we'll drop in an if statement. We'll say if input data.namedInput is equal to namedInputs.select. Then we'll look at our selection index and decide what to do with the selection.
Okay.
Now, with the pause menu, if the user selects either resume or quit, in either case, the pause menu is going to get hidden, because if you resume, the pause menu needs to go away so we can get back to the game. If we hit quit, the pause menu needs to go away, and then we need to go back to the song selection screen. So no matter what happens, we're going to make a call to screen.popScreen, which is going to take care of the pause menu. So the moment the user hits select, we'll jump in here to screen and invoke popScreen. And then just to keep things clear as to what's going on, I'll drop a comment out by the side here that's saying that with this operation we will hide the pause menu. Now, at this point, we need to do a check and see whether or not we hit resume or quit. So once we've gotten rid of the pause menu, we need to see, is that enough? Are we just resuming? Or do we need to go further and pop the screen that invoked the pause screen, for example, something like the game screen. To decide this, we'll see whether or not the quit menu item was selected. So we'll check this dot selection index, and if it was equal to 1, then the quit item was selected. And if that's the case, we will run screen.popScreen an additional time, and that'll take care of popping whatever screen invoked pause. And once again, since we're in a scenario where we're running the same method multiple times, it's a good idea to leave ourselves some hints as to exactly what each level does. So in this case, the second pop screen is going to hide the screen that invoked the pause menu. And of course, this one's conditional, so we may not necessarily get down here if quit was not selected. Alright, with all of this in place, that takes care of the input handling for the pause menu. Now we can turn our attention to some drawing code. We'll need to put some code in place to handle the drawing of each individual menu item. And we'll do this inside of the draw menu item method. We'll override draw menu item, and we will take out our call to base.drawMenuItem, and then we're ready to go with the individual drawing code. Now this is going to look very similar to some code in the past, because again, we're inside of a menu, needing to draw some text. We'll need to measure that text to get the height, and then we can establish a position, information, and then finally draw it out to the screen. So let's begin with a local variable, a local string called text. And we'll copy in the text from the current menu item, which is found in this .item names sub item index. With our new text, we'll turn around and measure that text. We'll create a vector2 variable to store the text dimensions. We can call this variable text dims, and that will be equal to style.fontlarge.measureString. Then we can pass in our text. Now that we have the text dimensions, let's also store the position. So make a vector2 called position, and copy over the position currently found in the style position pause menu. So we'll look into style positions, grab pause menu. Again, that's the setting that we had just set earlier in the style.xml file. Alright, with our new position, we do need to take into account the item index that we're drawing, because each sequential item is going to need to be drawn lower on the screen. So we'll do that by looking into position and modifying its Y component. We'll increment the Y component by the line number that we're currently on, and that line number here would be described as item index. And the height of the line would be item index times text dimensions.y. Then we're going to multiply an additional spacing of 1.1f to give ourselves just a little bit more spacing between each line. Alright, with this set of variables, we now have all of the information we need to draw the text. So we'll grab a sprite batch and tell it to draw a string. We'll grab the large font from style, which is style.fontlarge, plug in the text variable, the position variable, and the color parameter. Now, with all of these in place, we still need to invoke the pause menu from somewhere. We have the pause menu class assembled, ready to go, but now we need to turn our attention to the game screen and invoke the pause menu. We're going to bring up pause whenever the user hits select, so for example, enter on the keyboard when they're playing the game. So we'll scroll up a little bit here to our input pressed section, and we'll add an additional check. We'll drop in an else if statement, and we'll check if inputData.namedInput is equal to namedInputs.select. And if so, we'll turn around and invoke the pause screen. So we'll grab screen.pushScreen, and we'll push the screen named pause. Now, of course, at this point, we don't actually have a screen in the screens list named pause. We have the class ready to go, but we need an instance of it to be ready before we get into the game.
Right.
And to do that, we'll go back to our game class, where we're creating all of our screens and register a new pause menu. So switching over to the game class, we can see that If we scroll down to our load content section, we have all of the registration of our various screens. So in order to get the pause menu into full effect, we'll duplicate one of these lines, so we have a second or an additional screens.add line. We can call this new line pause and make it a new instance of screen pause. Alright, with the pause screen added and fully registered, we should be ready to go ahead and jump in and test out our new screen. So we'll load up the game, we can jump into single player, begin playing the game, then hit select, and very nice, we have a pause screen, even with the background already preloaded in.
And we can select resume and quit. If we hit resume, oh, I can't do anything, it's all you. I can only control some of it.
That's right, so you're missing the select button. What happens if you hit start?
Oh, I gotta hit start, okay. There you go. So I can hit start all I want to. Sorry, I had the controller and I had to do something mischievous. So I can resume whenever I want to, and if I hit quit and hit start, then we jump back to the song selection screen.
So very nice. Now we can go back through a series of screens, and we have both resume functionality, where all we do is pop the pause screen back off the stack, go back to game, or we have quit, which will allow us to jump all the way back out of the game and to the song selection menu.
You know what's throwing me off? Is like on my lunch break, I actually played the Xbox a little bit. And I'm so used to, when you want to advance in a menu in a game these days, hitting the A button.
I see.
It's like a standard. Like, nobody actually makes you hit start anymore. Like, not since the old days of the Nintendo did people actually make you hit start.
And to give, I'll do you one better with the naming of the items. Consider consoles that use select as an actual button on the controller.
Yeah.
Some console controllers don't
select and start.
They don't have a back button; they have a select button.
Yes.
And then sometimes select functions as back. So
Right.
naming definitely gets very interesting in that world. But we do in fact have our pause menu working. So we have created what ended up being a very simple screen.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we were just leveraging a bunch of subsystems that already existed, and we're able to create a pause screen in short order.
Very cool.
So with that, that's going to wrap up this video.